Trumpet players, do you play with a wet embouchure or a dry embouchure? And does it even really matter? I have a few thoughts on this topic today and I want to share them with you. So let's get right to it. Hey everybody, it's Tito from Jazz Mind. And today we're going to talk about, should we play with wet lips or dry lips? Can we even change back and forth? And what does it all mean? Is it important at all? Before we get started in the video, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel so that you're aware of all of the upcoming videos. I got a lot of content coming your way that I'm really excited about. Needless to say, this has been somewhat of a challenging week. It was the first week of classes back at school. And so learning how to manage this new YouTube channel while having a full-time job, it's going to be some kind of something. It's definitely going to be a challenge, but I feel like I'm up to the task. I plan to continue dropping videos every single week on this channel. So you want to subscribe. I was watching an interesting video by a gentleman from the UK. He never said his name, but his channel is called Airstream Trumpet. And the video I saw, I'm going to go ahead and link in the description. I thought it was very well done, well thought out. And it was talking about wet embouchure or dry embouchure. And he mentioned a lot of famous dry lip players. And most of the ones he mentioned were like these incredible lead or high note players like Maynard Ferguson, like Wayne Bergeron, and Louis Dowdeswell. And I thought, wow, I actually have something to say about this. In my own experience, I had teachers who were predominantly wet lip players. The great Ray Crisera from New York City, who I studied with down in Texas, and the great Ron Modell, who I studied with at Northern Illinois. Shout out to the Mode, hugs to Kathy. I remember Ron Modell at our lessons, every time he sat up to play, he would do this. He would literally lick his lips and then just kind of rub the mouthpiece in. It almost like it didn't matter where he played. And if I tried to do that, I would easily start sounding like a third grader. I'm not kidding. Because I feel I kind of need more of an anchor point with my embouchure. When I say dry lip player, I guess I should probably say drier lip player, because it's not like dry lip players, I don't think, are completely dry. I know I'm not completely dry, but I do have kind of a controlled wetness, right? I need it just the right amount. Well, when I saw this video, it triggered a memory about when I was coming up in my early 20s. I'd already decided to study music in college, and I knew that I wanted to be a full-time trumpet player. And this was around the time that I was really discovering jazz. I was studying classical music, and I caught the jazz bug hard. And I knew at that point that I wanted to become a soloist. Well, back then, we would go to places called record stores for you young children out there. And Tower Records was our place of choice. And I bought this double CD of Maurice Andre playing trumpet concertos. It's just called The Art of Maurice Andre, right? Double CD. Actually, it's not a double CD. There's 4 CDs in here. Woo-hoo. Fantastic stuff. I was obviously a huge fan. Inside CDs, kids, they have these things called liner notes. And liner notes are where you learn more about the artist and the music that they're playing. Well, these liner notes actually contained a really interesting interview. And I knew at this point that I was a drier lip player. But when I read this, I was a bit in shock. And I'm going to read you this snippet. It's really fascinating because Maurice Andre is talking about how he teaches his students in this particular section. He says this: I teach my pupils to hold themselves properly. I try from the start to make sure of this personally because the trumpet is a difficult instrument to teach. Tell me about it. You can correct a pianist or a violinist by getting the position of his fingers and his arms right, and the way he attacks a piece. But the trumpet is a purely physical instrument. Everything happens inside the player. How can you analyze exactly the work being done by the diaphragm and the lungs and keep a check on the famous vertical upthrust? A little bit later, he says this, and you have to watch your circulation. The pressure is terrible on the high notes. 25 kilos. Enough to blow up a tire on a lorry. That's like a semi-truck for you Americans out there. You've got your lip crushed against the mouthpiece. If in the second after you let go, the lip isn't thoroughly moistened, you can say goodbye to a career as a soloist. You'll only be able to do orchestral work. Needless to say, I was mildly horrified when I had read this, and I knew that I was a dry lip player. And here he is clearly saying, you really can't be a soloist and be a dry lip player. You would have to do orchestral work. And it got me thinking about two things. And my first thought was like, why is that? Like, he didn't go on to explain. They started talking about something else in the interview. And so I had to really think long and hard about why he felt this way. And so I literally tried to change myself from a dry lip player to a wet lip player. And let me tell you something. It was the most uncomfortable 2 days of my life because I couldn't do it. I literally could not. The thing felt like it was slipping around everywhere on my face. And I had no grip. I had no control over the instrument. It felt like a loose cannon, like anything might come out of the horn. And so I probably started walking around kind of depressed, to be honest with you, wondering, man, maybe I need to do something. But, thinking about what he said about you'd have to do orchestral work, it also got me thinking about the different types of trumpet players and the different types of demands placed on trumpet players. This is kind of a side note, but I think it's an important distinction because we talk a lot about things like endurance, like in my last video, we talk about range. But really, when I think about orchestral players, I kind of view them in the same ballpark as lead trumpet playing. Orchestral work is similar to lead trumpet playing in the sense, obviously the styles are very different, but both of their approaches require stamina and power. The orchestral trumpeter playing Mahler and Bruckner must be able to provide the softest of softs, but boy, when Mahler writes quadruple forte, you've got to be able to achieve it as well. And lead trumpet players have to have this incredible range and stamina, but they have to do it with a certain amount of power because that sound really has to rise above the entire big band. But notice the type of playing that they do. It's kind of short bursts followed by rest. There's a lot of rest involved, and then you have these short bursts of powerful playing. Come to think of it, they're kind of like the sprinters of the trumpet world, right? When you see Olympic sprinters, these guys and girls look kind of buff, right? They're muscular, they're well-defined, they're cut. And then we have the soloist, whether you're a classical recitalist or you're like a jazz improviser or the chamber music playing. If you're in the Canadian brass, for example, or if you're a soloist like the great Håkan Hardenberger or Maurice Andre, or you're a jazz artist like Wynton Marsalis and the greats of old like Miles Davis and Freddie Hubbard and Clifford Brown. Their playing demands are different than the orchestral player and the lead player. Their playing style is predicated on having that horn up on your face for long stretches of time, but not so much predicated on power. They're more about agility between the registers, flexibility, for example. but their forte level is never going to equate to someone like Bud Herseth or Phil Smith. And the jazz artists, even the jazz artists with great high chops, like Wynton Marsalis, for example, current figures like Terrell Stafford and Sean Jones, they're never going to have to play high notes the same way that Wayne Bergeron plays or Maynard Ferguson. It's a different approach to trumpet playing. They're more like the marathon runners, you could say, of trumpet playing, because their game is more about long distance. It's more about stamina endurance over a long period of time, but in a more controlled dynamic, because they're more in a solo or small group or chamber music type of environment. So getting back to the quote, this had me distressed because I knew I wanted to be a soloist. I knew that I wanted to be able to front a band and write tunes and get my band going. And I was really down on myself for a little while. And over time, I guess I learned what was required of a soloist. And perhaps I began to understand a little bit why Maurice said what he said. Remember that he said that after you let go of the trumpet, so like after you play a phrase, you need to moisten the lip thoroughly. What I realized is he's talking about being able to take the horn off of your face, reset, and put it back on. I just spoke about this in the last video about endurance. If you haven't checked that out, I'll put that link in the description as well, where I discuss the 5 not so obvious factors that are limiting your endurance. One of those factors, for those of you who saw it, is you have the horn on your face too long for too long a stretch. You see, when you're playing in short bursts, it doesn't much matter that you have the horn on your face for a long stretch, because you know that there's rest coming up. But when you're a soloist and you have to be up there, if you're a jazz artist and you're playing 2 sets or maybe sometimes even 3 sets of music, and each time you pick up the horn, you're playing solos that last 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and so on. That adds up very, very quickly. So what I started experimenting with was exercises that forced me to take the horn off of my face, put it back on, and then play again. And let me tell you something. It did make me realize that I was one of these people that kind of had the horn on their face for too long, and it was really limiting my endurance. But the reason I was doing it is because I wanted that anchor point with the drier lip setting. And so I started with a very simple exercise that I'm going to show you right now. And all it involves is playing some long tones, then taking the horn off, putting it right back on, and coming right back in with the long tone. Simple. And I began doing this simple exercise in different registers. And let me tell you something, it was a little awkward for me in the beginning. I realized that when I would put it back on, I was a little concerned that maybe it wouldn't be in the right spot for the feel that I was used to. And I realized I wasn't quite using the same type of normal pressure, mouthpiece pressure, that everybody has a little bit of. I was very tentative instead. So when I realized that, when I would put it back, I would put it back confidently. And that's when I started being able to do this technique. And now I don't think about it at all. This is definitely something I struggled trying to teach myself how to become a wet lip player. It never happened. But I'm here to say, for you drier lip players, you don't have to become a wet lip player. What you have to do when you get into your solo type work or chamber music or jazz combo type music, it's imperative that you're able to take the horn off and put it right back on so that your lip, as Maurice describes it, isn't crushed against the mouthpiece, impeding blood circulation in the lips. Once I began getting really comfortable with this technique, I haven't looked back since then, and I've built already a long career as a jazz soloist. So I want to encourage everybody, don't freak out like I did. But this concept of removing the horn and putting it back is something I think everybody needs to learn how to do and learn how to feel comfortable with. You want to do it in different registers at different volumes, different dynamic levels as well. Well, that's the extent of this video for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, please like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to the next time. Peace.